round, save for that monotonous tock, tock, tock of the parchment flapping in the breeze. The moon, who all along had been capricious and chary of her light, made a final retreat behind a gathering bank of clouds, and the crowd, the soldiers and the great grim walls were all equally wrapped in gloom. Only the little lantern on the gateway now made a ruddy patch of light, and tinged that fluttering parchment with the colour of blood. Every now and then an isolated figure would detach itself from out the watching throng, and go up to the heavy oaken door, in order to gaze at the proclamation. Then the light of the lantern illumined a dark head or a grey one, for a moment or two, black or white locks were stirred gently in the wind, and a sigh of puzzlement and disappointment would be distinctly heard. At times a group of 3 or 4 would stand there for a while, not speaking, only sighing and casting eager, questioning glances at one another, whilst trying vainly to find some hopeful word, some turn of phrase or meaning that would be less direful in that grim and ferocious proclamation. Then a rough word from the sentinel, a push from the butt end of a bayonet would disperse the little group and send the men, sullen and silent, back into the crowd. Thus they watched for hours, whilst the bell of the Beffroi tolled all the hours of that tedious night. A thin rain began to fall in the small hours of the morning, a wetting, soaking drizzle which chilled the weary watchers to the bone. But they did not care. We must not sleep, for the woman might escape. Some of them squatted down in the muddy road. The luckier ones managed to lean their backs against the slimy walls. Twice before the hour of midnight they heard that same quaint and merry laugh proceeding from the lighted room through the open window. Once it sounded very low and very prolonged, as if in response to a delightful joke. Anon the heavy gateway of the Gayole was opened from within, and half a dozen soldiers came walking out of the courtyard. They were dressed in the uniform of the town guard, but had evidently been picked out of the rank and file, for all 6 were exceptionally tall and stalwart, and towered above the sentinel, who saluted and presented arms as they marched out of the gate. In the midst of them walked a slight, dark figure, clad entirely in black, save for the tricolour scarf round his waist. The crowd of watchers gazed on the little party with suddenly awakened interest. "Who is it?" whispered some of the men. "The citizen governor," suggested one. "The new public executioner," ventured another. "No, no," quoth Pierre Maxime, the doyen of Boulogne fishermen, and a great authority on every matter, public or private, with the town. "No, no, he is the man who has come down from Paris, the friend of Robespierre. He makes the laws now. The citizen governor even must obey him. 'Tis he who made that law that if the woman up yonder should escape..." "Hush!" came in frightened accents from the crowd. "Hush, Pierre Maxime, the citizen might hear thee," whispered the man who stood closest to the old fisherman. "The citizen might hear thee and think that we rebelled." "What are these people doing here?" queried Chauvelin as he passed out into the street. "They are watching the prison, citizen," replied the sentinel whom he had thus addressed, "lest the female prisoner should attempt to escape." With a satisfied smile Chauvelin turned towards the town hall, closely surrounded by his escort. The crowd watched him and the soldiers as they quickly disappeared in the gloom, then they resumed the stolid, wearisome vigil of the night. The old Beffroi now tolled the midnight hour. The one solitary light in the old fort was extinguished, and after that the frowning pile remained dark and still. End of chapter 28.